This is the Investor Connect podcast program. I'm Hall T. Martin. I'm the host of this show in which we interview angel investors, venture capital, family offices, private equity, and many other investors for early stage and growth companies. I hope you enjoy this episode. Well, hello, this is Hall Martin with Investor Connect. Today we're here with Deepak Gupta of Blue Bear Ventures. Deepak, thank you for joining us.
Appreciate it. Appreciate your time.
Great. So what was your background before investing in early stage companies? What did you do before this?
Actually, I worked at many different startups. I was in medical device and healthcare, biotech, and I started out with doing stuff in instant restenosis in the late 90s, which is basically a roto-rooter for your heart. And from there, I went into like a PCR technology, real-time PCR. And then for a short time, I worked for Medtronic doing cardiac rhythm management. These were defibrillators, pacemakers. And then finally, I worked for a brain stimulation company. After that, I did about medical device startups for about 11 years. And I decided to go back to business school. And once business school was over, I said, I should try venture. And I've been doing venture for about past 8 years.
Great. So what excites you right now?
So what I'm currently doing right now is I'm actually helping students and alumni at Berkeley Haas. And I work with a lot of students who are starting companies and actually bringing companies to the market. We have companies going to different accelerators as well as seed funding. But the ecosystem, the university ecosystem in general is very rich. And I'm not just talking about Berkeley, but UC General, Stanford, MIT, Harvard. And my fund, what we're focused on is actually more the deep tech technologies that are coming out from these different universities. So anything in applied bio, climate change, where we know research has already gone into it and they're not research projects anymore. There's more of a product market fit. And we're helping entrepreneurs come out of that ecosystem where they've been working on the technology and how do we actually get them to a seed or Series A funding.
Well, great. So you see a lot of investors and startups out there. For investors, what's your advice for them about investing in startups? What should they do before they write that first check?
So the way we work is a lot different. Historically, we have known these founders for a very long time, could be 12 months, 18 months. And one thing that we have always taken away with the founders, especially working that long with them, is they need to be coachable. I think the biggest thing is everyone looks at the market size, looks at the team, looks at everything else. What we look at is, are these entrepreneurs, especially coming from the university side, are they coachable? Can you tell them something to do and they actually do it? I think one thing we all need to remember about startups, the way we measure startup, it's all about execution. So if we know an entrepreneur at an early stage can be coachable, we know that they can execute their idea or their product.
Well, great. And then on the other side of that table, what's your advice for startups who are launching a business? What do you tell them to do before they go out for that fundraise?
So before their fundraise, and it just depends on the entrepreneur, how early are they, right? I mean, I have entrepreneurs in the business school that still have an idea on a piece of paper, right? So the idea is, if you're that early, do you really know what the problem that you're going after, right? Is this really a problem? Have you done a survey? Have you gotten data? And based on that data, have you validated the problem? And then once you have a problem, have you gone back to the customers and really talked about the solution? So there's a step-by-step process where a company needs to get to before they can go out and really go get the first check, right? Even from friends and family, and then angels, and then institutional investors. For friends and family, maybe once you have validated the product and you know what that product could look like and you want to test it, then you're probably going to your friends and family and getting that cash. But once you have that cash from friends and family, how do you get the angels involved? When is the right time to figure out that product market fit? And what kind of data do you need to get the angels excited? And as you know, it is a dating process. It could take a couple of months with angels to actually get that first money in, right? And you, at that time, in those couple of months or maybe even longer, you're trying to build that trust. You're trying to build that relationship. I think that's really important.
Great. Well, let's talk about the state of investing. We're in a transition point from one market to the next, but how do you see the industry evolving and what changes do you see coming up?
So are you talking specifically for COVID-19?
That's right. It seems like the market is now shifting. One bull market is coming to a close. New markets opening up. There's going to be new investment thesis. There's going to be a new set of careabouts in some ways. But how are you viewing this shift?
Yeah, so here's the issue. If you look at Silicon Valley in general, people really talk about, oh, we need to make sure and our companies have cash on hand, especially the seed stage companies, Series A companies who are saying, oh, do you have 12 months of cash, 24 months of cash, whatever that parameter is. But there's another side that's saying, okay, can we get this company profitable or break even? When is that going to happen, right? And these are maybe for later stage, Series A, Series B. But even profitability means like, what are you actually hindering? Are you hindering growth, right? And how much growth are you hindering? Sometimes in these difficult times, it's good to just stay with what you have if you're getting revenue. But if you're not getting revenue, how can you lower your cash burn to a point that you can survive the next 6 months, 12 months? Because we don't know what to expect, right? So it's more about trying to make sure the companies survive. And as everyone knows, cash is king, but how to use that cash wisely, right? That's very important.
Well, that's great. So let's talk about your investment thesis for your fund. What exactly is the investment thesis and what exactly are you looking for in startups that fit that thesis?
So I think I talked about one thesis already, which was the scientist CEO. And when I talk about scientist CEOs, I mean somebody that has a deep tech background, of course, but is coachable, right? That's probably one of the biggest things we look for is how well can this company actually come out of the garage into that product market fit. The second thing in our thesis are top research universities. And again, we just don't look at Berkeley or Stanford. We have companies at MIT, Harvard. So in top research universities, what kind of technology is really coming out? And the third thing that we're actually going after is more about innovation over invention. And let me kind of just dig a little deep into that. What do we mean by innovation over invention? Because there's tons of inventions and people are filing patents on that. And basically, invention is built from solving a problem, while innovation is built from the need. And what we're trying to go after is that need. We're trying to figure out, hey, is there really a need for this product or this idea?
Well, that's great. And what exactly do the startups need to do to fit your thesis as far as do they have to have something that's patentable or how do you decide I'm going to invest in that deal but not the other?
Yeah, I think what we do very well, and we're 3 people on the team, and obviously we don't know every single deep tech vertical that's out there, but we do have connections at almost all universities, top tier universities that we've built over the last 25, 30 years. So we know the knowledge expert in whatever idea that you're bringing to the table, right? So we're trying to figure out, is this idea really what we think it is? I mean, we have seen enough companies in the past 7 to 10 years that we can understand, okay, is this technology viable? But if we want to look deeper, we do have connections that can validate that idea. That's one point. But the second point to your question is, how do we get these new startups in terms of, is there IP? There's no IP. I think that it just comes back to our 3 criteria, right? The top research universities, the scientists, CEOs, and then innovation over invention.
Well, great. So aside from fundraising, what do you think the primary challenge your startups face in launching their business? What do they need to get over before they can really get going on it? And fundraising, of course, is a big one. But aside from that, what do you see out there?
So deep tech is hard, as you know. There's a lot of hard science in terms of just getting the idea to validate even Silicon Valley investors. So if you take investments aside, like you said, the other challenge is even getting partnerships into pharma companies, drug companies, energy companies, right? So right now, the two challenges are, yes, fundraising, which you said, keep that aside. But the second one is, what is this partnership going to look like in the future, in 6 months, 12 months?
Okay, very good. And so you see a lot of opportunities and applications out there in the deep tech space. If you had to pick one or two that are at the top of your list, what would you choose?
Yeah, so I mean, the two big sectors that we're covering, I think, in deep tech is probably applied bio as well as energy, or you could say climate change. And a couple of things within applied bio that we're really excited about is probably synthetic biology and gene therapy. There's a lot of stuff going in that area, but also because of COVID-19, you can talk about more about the drug discovery as well as trying to go after different biotech companies that are approaching from a different standpoint, right? So that would be one area. And the other area in terms of climate change, you can see stuff in robotics and novel materials, as well as AI machine learning applied to manufacturing. So there's like two different verticals, I could say, within deep tech we're seeing.
Very good. Well, in the last few minutes that we have here today, what else should we cover that we haven't?
So I think the takeaway from all of this should be, what is going to be innovation looking like in the next couple of years, 5 years or 10 years down the road? And at Blue Bear Ventures, we really believe that when AI and machine learning is actually going into all these different sectors in technology, it's really going to change how we're going to interact with one another and what we're going to expect just in general in terms of the environment. So what I mean by that is the way we are working, the way we're commuting, the way we're actually even talking to one another. You can see already with COVID-19, we're using Zoom so much. But what's the next generation of this, right? And what kind of deep tech technologies are going to come out really impact us right away? So that's it.
Very good. So how best for listeners to get back in touch with you?
Sure. If anybody's interested in what we're doing, please check out our website. It's called B as in boy, V as in Victor.io, BBVII.io. And there's an info@bbv.io right at the bottom. They can definitely, send us any questions or requests on that.
Great. We'll put that in the show notes. I want to thank you for joining us today and hope to have you back for a follow-up soon.
Sounds good. Thank you again for your time, Paul.
Investor Connect helps investors interested in startup funding. In this podcast series, experienced investors share their experience and advice. You can learn more at investorconnect.org. Halti Martin is the director of Investor Connect, which is a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to the education of investors for early stage funding. All opinions expressed by Hall and podcast guests are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinions of Investor Connect. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon for the basis of investment decisions.